In the previous video, we talked about the nature of title, then the root title. Now we're talking about the validity of the title document. This has to do with the essential features of the document, because where there's a lacuna in the document, it makes that title voidable. And I mentioned the last time that there are persons who has the right to transfer property. For example, in a family-owned land, you need the eldest and the principal members to transfer ownership of that property to Maria. So when you receive such document and you want to verify, you have to ensure that these principal partners actually had their signatures on this document, because it makes that document void. A single individual cannot transfer family property. So where Mr. Okonkwo decides to sell a property to you and he signs the transfer document, you don't have any property. So that's one of the things you need to check when you're going through the document. You also need to ensure, if it has to do with community land, the chief and elders have to append their signature on that document. There are other salient features of a document that makes a document valid. The names, the parties, if it's a joint ownership, do all parties give their consent to that sale? Then you also need a document to verify from the necessary registry. For example, somebody tells you that they have a C of O, they have registered their title. You just take it like that. You have to carry out your due diligence on that document by taking it to the Ministry of Lands of that state to ensure that that land has been duly registered with the state. Once you do this, you are sure that the document you have in your hand is good and you can decide to go further to the next step. Fourth, incoherent title. That's to say, incomplete title. There are instances where a person buys a property and is expected to fulfill some obligations before he owns the property. For example, Mr. Okonkwo buys a land from the community and the community is willing to transfer ownership to Mr. Okonkwo, and they give him some items to fulfill, possibly pay this, pay that, and all that. He has an equitable right over that property, but he does not have a legal right to transfer that property until those obligations are fulfilled. So when you want to buy a property from Mr. Okonkwo and you don't carry out due diligence to know of his liability obligations to be fulfilled, when you buy that property, that liabilities come upon you. And this happens most times. Some people don't complete payment. Probably they have a contract to sale agreement. You have an equitable right, but you cannot sell that property until you fulfill the obligations of that agreement. Then you own the property to even transfer to another. So when Maria comes to meet Mr. Okonkwo and she, without due diligence, she purchased that property, the community may have to come after Maria to fulfill the obligations that Mr. Okonkwo failed to fulfill. So due diligence is very important for you to ascertain whether this title is either a complete one or an incomplete one. And the importance of this is, it's not a bad thing if somebody wants to sell that equitable right, but it becomes bad if you're not informed or if you're not aware. Person is selling it gives you a misrepresentation of fact that he owns the property. Most people sell properties because they know that they can fulfill the obligation. But when you are aware of the fact and you go ahead to buy, when the situation arises, you will know how to handle it. And that's why we cannot overemphasize the importance of due diligence.